Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. So glad you joined me here for today's very special episode. We've made it past 10,000 subscribers. Woohoo! And a huge thanks to you all around for being a loyal fan, subscribing to the channel, and liking the episodes on a weekly basis. And by the way, if you're already not a subscriber and you're stumbling upon this channel for the first time, be sure to subscribe to this channel for tons of loaded information, awesome real estate information, and goodies about, what's happening in the greater Toronto market. Now, to mark this milestone, I thought it'd be an opportune time to kind of share with you kind of my story and kind of my personal real estate journey thus far, because I'm sure there's still more to go, right? So let's jump right to it. Where do I start? I guess birth makes sense, right? So I was born in the third largest city in China. It's called Guangzhou. Fun fact, the population in the city I was born is the same as Ontario. It's just much, much, much smaller geographically. You can go from one end to the other, I think in maybe 90 minutes, no, maybe like an hour. And it's about a 90-minute maglev train to Hong Kong. So it's on the southern side of China. Back then, I grew up pretty poor, even though, may not have known it as a kid. I have a photo of myself from back then in an apartment we used to live in, and we shared that apartment with my cousins and uncles who still live back in China. It was probably no bigger than a one bedroom for comparison sakes, relative to right now, 500 square feet. And there were six of us. Let's just say things were rough. But obviously, as a kid, you don't really know when you're roll the punches, as long as, I got toys to play with, which apparently, according to my parents, I loved fire trucks. So you can see that photo, right? And, didn't really seem too bad. And kind of like most immigrant families, my parents wanted to give me a better life. So this is a picture of my dad. And he told me that, actually a lot of people told me that I look a lot like him now. You should let me know in the comments what you think. Anyways, he made a very difficult decision when I was very young to come to Canada and take a huge risk to kind of leave and escape as a refugee. And he actually came to Canada via boat. So flash forward to 91, I was fortunate enough to be able to immigrate to Canada with my mom. We took a plane. We ended up settling in a small kind of humble apartment by Peanut Plaza. Both of my parents, didn't really speak a word of English, and they had to do what they could to put food on the table and, to have a roof over our heads. So my mom became a waitress at a Chinese restaurant, and she did that till she retired. And my dad became a Chinese restaurant line cook, and he's doing that till he retired. And as for me at the time, well, I didn't really understand the concept of money too much. I mean, most kids don't, right? I was 6, but I feel like we were struggling to make ends meet since we didn't even have enough money to buy furniture in the apartment we first moved into. I remember one of the memories is that I slept in a corner of the living room because it's a one-bedroom apartment, on top of multiple donated mattresses. I mean, I didn't understand why, but I just did it. And fast forward a few years from there, we moved to downtown by Trinity Bellwoods. This was in the early 2000s, so it wasn't cool or hip yet. And I remember the place we moved into by Trinity Bellwoods is at the northwest corner of Dundas and Manning. It was the first house. It was across from the old lumber mill. It's not there anymore. And we rented the basement of that house. We actually moved around a lot while I was in school, but all I remember was that we kept moving around the same area to try to be in the same school district, but sometimes it didn't happen that way. Well, when I grew up, my mom eventually told me why we kept moving around when I grew up, and it turns out we were constantly being evicted for not being able to make rent payments because things were tough financially for us. And then by then, I had hoped that things would get better, right? Obviously, I was a little bit more grown up, understood, right? And I got an opportunity to attend university at Waterloo, which kind of, was the start of some kind of postgraduate education. But even then, there was a lot of family pressure in my life to be, that successful immigrant kid, because our parents struggled to make ends meet, came here from a different country, leave everything behind, we were family and friends, so that we could have opportunities. And I'll be honest, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated from Waterloo. Though one day while I was working a bartending shift, I happened to serve someone who owned a really big real estate company in Yorkville that specialized in doing the BRRRR method for commercial property. So this is the buy, renovate, refinance, and rent. I messed that up somewhere, but like they did that for commercial properties. But that's actually not how I got into real estate. Funny enough, he hired me to do business development for his side fun business of designing holograms, which sounds super weird. Yes. So that actually wasn't the start of my real estate journey yet. I actually got into real estate a little bit later because a buddy of mine told me to get my real estate license because he had his, and it was just a side hustle. Little did I know it, 2 weeks before I got my license as a realtor, I was laid off from my hologram gig via email because the company was going under. That's a story for a different day. But that hologram passion project, didn't really end up doing too well, and I was at the blunt end of being left jobless. Luckily, I had just gotten my license to trade in real estate. So I had to quickly learn how to hustle as a realtor with no experience and no way of finding clients or just knowing how to find clients. And I was still super young at that point. I remember doing my first lease without a car, and I was walking to condos downtown. But the good thing was because I was living downtown, I was able to find some success in kind of rinsing and repeating a lot of the leases. And I was doing like relatively well speaking, but I didn't really feel completely fulfilled. I knew I wanted to, strive to achieve more and kind of get something greater. And eventually I found an opportunity in commercial real estate and had a great mentor who took me under his wing. So that was a good turning point because I learned a whole lot. But then I realized just because I was in commercial real estate wearing a tie and a suit and helping the rich get richer, just really wasn't my jam. And it didn't really kind of jive with me and who I was as a person. So that's kind of when I was searching for other ways out. And that's when I stumbled on the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And as any investor would know, the rest is history. After you read that book, things kind of open up in your eyes and, opens your thoughts to much, much more. And by then I had already banked up a ton of real estate knowledge, analytical skills, and experience from being in the real estate profession for a while. And also just learning so much from my mentor and how to navigate kind of, a lot of the real estate kind of business, right? So I started building my own real estate portfolio and found a new interest in that. And then when I combined that with what I had read in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I realized, I could just do that, what I was doing for myself for other people and just grow my business in that manner. And the rest is history. Now, fast forwarding along, I started this YouTube channel that you're currently watching, where I started making YouTube videos when I realized that I was essentially repeating myself many, many, many times with the same concepts, trying to educate clients and would-be clients on what is happening in the Toronto real estate market. And I wanted to get my thoughts across in a more efficient manner, because that's just kind of how I'm just like trained in my mind, which is how the Prime Property Heroes YouTube channel was born. It was more of a education platform to make me explaining things a lot easier. And the main purpose was to provide people, kind of like yourself who's watching this, with relevant and timely information so that if you eventually want to work with us, you would kind of know what the starting grounds are. So you could say that growing it to, the point today, I guess like 10,000 plus subscribers was just a kind of an accident, but thank you. And even opening my Remax brokerage was also kind of an accident, but that's a story for a different day. But if I were to reflect back now, every time someone kind of told me to try something, I always kind of said yes. And I just took the opportunity, right? You kind of grab the bull by the horns, if that was kind of the saying, right? Like my hologram gig was someone offering me a job I knew absolutely nothing about, but I literally just showed up at the office the next day and kind of took the opportunity. My real estate license was my buddy telling me to get a side hustle just because, when you're young, you're trying to make some more money. Meeting my mentor in commercial real estate was just me showing up because he wanted to hire someone. I was like, okay, sure, let's try it out. So my whole thing is I just took the opportunity to try it out. Buying my first property was also easy because I just let's just try it out. I took the plunge, right? And of course, I've made tons of mistakes and had a lot of speed bumps along the way. And that's kind of where my experience comes in. But that's also how I learned and just did it and didn't have analysis paralysis. So I just took opportunities to learn and grow. And hey, you know what? I think it turned out pretty well, right? Both of my parents are now retired. I'm fortunate enough to be able to take care of them both. And my wife and I continue to build out our real estate portfolio. And we've been very thankful for being able to do what we're able to do right now because of real estate. And neither one of us grew up really privileged. Like she had a similar story, and we both grew up, without any means, and we both kind of made the best of the opportunities we had, and we just so happened to stumble upon one another, which includes, us getting married, right? So as cliche as it sounds, I feel fulfilled when I am given opportunity to help other people kind of make decisions that affect them financially with the real estate side, whether that's buying their first home, moving up, or even investing. It just allows me to kind of show them the ropes of what real estate has done for me to be able to help them out. And whether that's financial freedom or just getting a home, a roof over your head, it's very fulfilling. And it may not seem like much, but the financial freedom when you're buried in a bunch of crap that you have to deal with and inundated with a bunch of negative news, it doesn't feel great or it doesn't seem great at the time, but talking to my families back in China and other immigrants who have similar stories to me, Canada is still very much a land of opportunity, I believe. And this despite how ridiculous housing prices have gotten, because everything is relative, right? So I am still very optimistic about what's ahead for Canadians. And I definitely think my family got lucky coming here in the 90s when it was much, much easier. I mean, like I told you, my dad came on a boat and then I came here 2 years later. That's kind of why there's a lot of reasons why a lot of people keep immigrating here, because despite what we think here, we're kind of in a Canadian bubble, there actually still is a lot of opportunity here, a lot more abundant than a lot of places around the world from talking to a lot of other people, right? That's kind of my thoughts. Now, if you're still watching this video, thank you for listening to my story about kind of my beginnings and my journey with real estate. This type of asset can truly change, one's lives and definitely change mine. And the outcome is, I'm the living example of this outcome, right? So that's why the model for prime properties deal has always been your move, your future, because it's really about what you do with your opportunities that will define kind of where you are, right? So hopefully our paths will cross at some point, and if I could be of assistance for you personally with your home or your investment, your real estate journey, please don't be shy. You can reach out to me using a link. It's right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com, and I'll assure you we'll make the most of whatever it is that we can accomplish with what you're working for right now. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya.